The lavender balloons bobbed gently against a crisp spring sky as I stepped onto the stone walkway leading to my best friend's house. 22 years of friendship with Chloe Avery had taught me her tells. The half smile she used when she wanted something, the perfectly casual shrug that usually masked something deeper. But today, something felt off. My husband Ryan felt it too. He stood beside me, his expression neutral but alert. His doctor's eyes scanned the crowd like he was tracking vitals. When his hand slipped into mine, firm and quiet, I didn't expect the words he murmured. "We have to go. Something's wrong." I should have listened. Instead, I did what I always did. I made excuses for Chloe. "She's probably just overwhelmed," I whispered back, pasting on a smile. "You know how much pressure she's been under with the nonprofit and everything." But his grip didn't loosen. I didn't want to argue with him before the party even started, so I turned my attention back to the celebration. The driveway of Chloe's craftsman-style home in the West Hills was packed. Cars lined both sides of the street, and soft classical music played from somewhere inside. The whole front porch had been transformed with lavender garlands, ivory ribbon, and hydrangeas bursting from white ceramic vases. "Looks like the whole city showed up," Ryan said dryly, adjusting the collar of his button-up. He'd been unusually quiet during the drive over, fingers drumming the steering wheel the whole time. "You know, Chloe," I said, "nothing halfway." He nodded, but I caught it. That flicker of concern in his eyes. Ryan was never like this at parties. He was the charming one, the easy one. "You okay?" I asked gently, touching his arm. "Fine," he replied, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just tired. Rough shift last night." I let it go. Ryan worked back-to-back trauma shifts at St. Luke's. He was always tired. We walked up the steps, my arms full with the baby shower gift, a basket wrapped in lilac cellophane, filled with handmade books, organic baby clothes, and a knit fox I'd ordered from a local artisan. Before we could knock, the door flew open. "Lena." Chloe's voice rang out, light and warm, as she appeared in the doorway. She was glowing, literally. Her blonde hair was curled into soft waves, and she wore a blush-colored chiffon gown that flowed around her like mist. A crown of baby's breath sat gently atop her head. "You look like a goddess," I said, handing Ryan the gift basket so I could hug her. Chloe pulled me in briefly, careful, not tight, and then eased back. "Don't squish the little one," she laughed, one hand cradling her round stomach with theatrical grace. Something about the gesture felt rehearsed. "We wouldn't want that," I replied, laughing, trying to ignore the strange flicker in my chest. Ryan's eyes, however, were scanning the hallway behind her, his smile gone, his body tense. Inside, the house had been transformed. Lavender and cream exploded in every direction. Floral arrangements on each surface, silver trays with lemon scones, a mocktail bar glinting beside a crystal drink fountain. A neon pink cursive sign lit the back wall. "It's a girl." I paused, breathless. "Wow, Chloe, this must have cost a fortune." She waved it off. "Oh, don't worry, most of it was donated. People have been so generous." Ryan's brow ticked upward at that, but he said nothing. Then Alistair, Chloe's husband, appeared beside her with 2 champagne flutes in hand. "For the non-pregnant ones," he said with a wink. "Congratulations," Ryan said, clinking glasses. "Big changes ahead." "The biggest," Alistair agreed, but his eyes didn't quite meet his wife's. Something passed between them, a flicker, a beat, a pause I didn't understand. And somewhere in my gut, something tightened. We left before cake was served. I mumbled something about Ryan getting paged by the hospital, and Chloe gave me a mock pout. "Fine," she said, squeezing my hand. "But lunch soon, okay? Just us girls, I have so much to tell you." I nodded, promising, even as Ryan gently guided me toward the door. The lavender balloons waved at us as we pulled away, floating in the rearview mirror like pastel ghosts. The party music faded behind us, replaced by the low hum of tires on asphalt and the shallow rhythm of my breathing. I waited until we turned onto the highway before I spoke. "What the hell was that, Ryan?" He didn't answer right away. His hands were clenched tight around the steering wheel, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the road. I recognized that look. It was the one he wore when delivering bad news to families in the ER. "Ryan," I said again, softer this time. "Talk to me." He exhaled, sharp and slow. "She's not pregnant." I blinked. "What?" He glanced at me, then looked back at the road. "I'm saying Chloe is not 7 months pregnant. I don't think she's pregnant at all." The silence that followed was a scream in my chest. "That's insane," I said, shaking my head. "You saw her. I saw her. She's glowing. She's got a belly. The nursery—" "You saw what she wanted you to see," he interrupted, voice calm but firm. "But I noticed a few things that didn't add up." "Like what?" He adjusted his grip on the wheel. Her ankles, her hands, her face. No swelling, no water retention, not even the way she stood. Most women in their 3rd trimester are shifting their weight constantly. It's instinct. She wasn't. I stared at him. "That's not enough to make a claim like this." "She hugged you from the side, Lena. When was the last time she let you touch her stomach?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. I don't know," I admitted. "She's always been weird about physical space." Ryan gave a short, humorless laugh. "No, she's always been very good at managing what people see. She didn't drink any mocktail. She never used the bathroom once. Did you notice that?" "No." I did. 7 months pregnant, and she never excused herself to pee. Not once. I folded my arms, looking out the window, my mind racing through memory after memory. "She said everything was donated," I murmured. He nodded. "And the man near this gift table? That was Dr. Ellis, OB at my hospital. I spoke with him briefly before we left." I turned to him. And? Ryan's voice dropped. "He said something didn't sit right with him either. That she looked off." I was shaking my head again, more out of defense than disbelief. "You think she's faking it?" "For what? Attention, donations?" "I don't know," he replied, "but I do know this. Something is wrong." My throat was tight. I wanted to scream, to accuse him of being paranoid. But deep inside, something cold had started to settle in my stomach, because I had seen it too. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ryan had gone to bed early, exhausted from his double shift, but my mind refused to settle. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thoughts spiraling like smoke in a closed room. Chloe wasn't pregnant. The word sounded absurd even inside my own head. Chloe, my best friend. The girl I'd shared a locker with in 8th grade. The woman who held my hand through my father's funeral, who sent me cupcakes when I opened my private practice. She wasn't a liar. She couldn't be. And yet, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photo album titled Baby Girl Avery. Every post she had made in the past 7 months was there. Bump updates, nursery inspiration, flat lay shots of onesies folded with perfect symmetry. She always stood slightly angled. She always wore flowing dresses. She always kept distance. I tapped one of the photos from last month. Chloe at a brunch table, mimosa in hand, but hers was untouched. She had said she was nauseous that day. I kept scrolling. Nothing ever showed her eating. No blurry, candid shots, no belly kicks caught on video. Just polished, filtered moments. Performances. My heart pounded. I needed to see for myself. To touch what I couldn't quite believe. The next morning, I texted Chloe. "Hey, I think I left my blue scarf at your place yesterday. Mind if I swing by to grab it?" Her reply came almost immediately. I'm so sorry. I'm at the clinic in the city all day. But Eli's home. He can let you in." Perfect. Chloe's younger brother Eli was in town temporarily after leaving a startup job in Austin. Sweet, awkward, and not great at keeping secrets. I grabbed my keys and a real scarf, just in case I needed one to complete the illusion, and headed to the West Hills. When I pulled into Chloe's driveway, the house looked strangely lifeless without the celebration glow. The streamers had already been taken down. The front porch looked just like it always had. Clean, calm, curated. Eli answered the door in socks and a wrinkled t-shirt. "Oh, hey, Lena," he said, blinking like he'd just rolled out of bed. "Chloe said you might stop by." "Just looking for my scarf," I said, smiling. "I think I left it in the living room." He stepped aside. "Come in. It's probably under a pile of gift wrap somewhere." Inside, the house was hollow. The party glamour had vanished. No music, no floral scent, no chatter, just an almost eerie stillness. I moved through the hallway slowly, noting the absence of life. Half-filled gift bags were lined up neatly against the wall. A pile of thank you cards sat untouched on the console table. "I'll check the nursery," I called out, walking upstairs before he could offer to follow. The door was ajar. And that's when my stomach dropped. The crib was still in its box. So was the mattress, the stroller, even the changing table was unassembled. Every tag was still on the baby clothes. The books were still shrink-wrapped. Nothing had been opened. Nothing had been used. It was a showroom, not a nursery. My eyes drifted to the mural on the wall, the pastel forest Chloe had posted about for weeks. It was beautiful and brand new. Too new. I took a tentative step forward and ran my fingers across the edge of the dresser. A folder lay tucked between the wall and the changing table, barely visible. Curious, I crouched down. It wasn't a folder. It was a journal. The edges were frayed. A ribbon marked the middle. I hesitated, my heart thudding, then gently slipped it into my purse before backing out of the room. Eli was downstairs reheating coffee when I returned. "Find your scarf?" he asked, yawning. "I think I left it in my car after all," I lied smoothly. "But thanks anyway." "No problem. You want to leave a note for Chloe?" "No," I said, reaching for the doorknob. "I'll text her." Outside, the spring breeze was warm against my face. But inside my bag, something cold and heavy sat waiting, and I had no idea what I would find when I opened it. The journal sat on our kitchen table like a loaded weapon. I hadn't opened it right away. Instead, I placed it beside my coffee mug and stared at it while the kettle boiled, while the clock ticked, while my hands trembled. Then finally, I flipped the cover open. The first page was a letter. "My sweet girl, even if I never hold you, you live inside me. They say grief is a fog, but you're the light I still walk toward. Someday, you'll be real. Love, Mama." My throat tightened. The entry was dated nearly 3 years ago. Not 7 months, not last winter. 3 full years. I turned the pages slowly, like peeling back layers of someone else's skin. Each letter was written to a daughter who didn't exist. Some were hopeful, full of dreams about rocking chairs and lullabies. Others were darker, filled with frustration, sadness, and a desperation that bled through the ink. Then, near the middle, I found an entry that stopped me cold. They say I need to let go. But how do you let go of someone who never arrived? I see you in my dreams. I buy things just in case. I talk to people like you're real, because that makes you real, doesn't it? Everyone grieves differently. This is mine. I closed the journal and sat back, heart hammering. I remembered Chloe telling me once, casually, that she and Alistair had been trying a while before this pregnancy, but she'd never mentioned a miscarriage. Never. I opened the book again and flipped to the last entry. It was dated 2 weeks ago. They all believe now. The baby showers, the donors, the speeches. The new van for the clinic will be ours soon. Once the last donation clears, especially from Ellery, I can finally stop pretending. It's not a lie if it helps people, right? Right? My blood ran cold. It wasn't just grief. It wasn't just delusion. It was strategy. At that moment, the front door opened. Ryan stepped in, still in scrubs, shoulders sagging with exhaustion. He dropped his bag, kissed the top of my head, and paused when he saw the journal on the table. "What's that?" I met his eyes. "I went to Chloe's today," I said quietly. "She wasn't home, but Eli let me in." Ryan didn't say anything, just walked over and sat beside me. I opened the journal to one of the less damning entries and passed it to him. He read silently, jaw tightening with each line. "This was years ago. he murmured. I know. I handed him the last page. When he finished, he set the book down like it burned. She's been building this story for years, he said. Not just pretending, planning. She lost a baby, I whispered almost to myself. She had a miscarriage, I think. No one knew, and somehow, this grew from that. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Lena, this isn't just emotional collapse. This might be fraud. My stomach turned. She's using donor money, Ryan continued. If that journal's telling the truth, she's accepting funds for a pregnancy that doesn't exist, from people who've lost children. I rubbed my forehead, trying to breathe. There's a woman named Mrs. Ellery. Chloe mentioned her once. She lost her daughter to SIDS. She's one of the biggest donors. Ryan nodded grimly. You should call her. I looked at him, stunned. Are you serious? She deserves to know. I stared at the journal, at my best friend's handwriting, at the dreams that weren't just dreams, but designs. What scared me most wasn't that Chloe had lied. It was how well she had done it. The cabin sat at the edge of Willow Creek, tucked between pine trees and forgotten summers. Chloe's message had come just before dawn. Can we talk? Just us. Noon? The cabin. Please. The place was sacred ground to us. We'd spent teenage weekends here giggling over magazines, sharing our first crushes, dreaming about our futures. Back then, it had felt like the safest place on earth. Today, it felt like a trap. I parked beside her white SUV. The engine was cold. She was already here. My heart thudded as I walked up the steps, each footfall echoing louder than the last. I paused at the door. Before I could knock, it opened. Chloe stood there. No makeup, no flowing dress, no baby bump. Just Chloe. Barefaced, pale. Her blue eyes rimmed with red. You know, she said softly. Not a question. I nodded. She stepped aside. The cabin smelled like cedar and dust. A blanket was draped neatly over the back of the couch. The fireplace was dark, no baby items. No signs of joy. Just a woman sitting on the edge of something crumbling. I didn't sit. Why? I asked. Chloe stared down at her hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then why did it? Her shoulders dropped. Because for the first time in years, people looked at me like I mattered again. My breath caught. I was pregnant, she said suddenly, voice clipped. A year ago, 8 weeks in, Alistair was in Berlin for a conference. I was home alone. I started bleeding one night and... She didn't finish. I called him, but he didn't answer. I went to urgent care by myself, sat under those awful fluorescent lights with strangers. I saw the ultrasound screen go blank. My chest tightened. I didn't even tell you, she added. You were launching your clinic's grief program. You were finally in the spotlight. I didn't want to ruin it. Chloe, I thought I was coping, but I kept talking to her. My daughter. I gave her a name. I bought little things just to feel like she was real again. I finally sat down across from her. Then came that fundraiser last spring, she continued. I had a panic attack in the bathroom minutes before my speech. Alistair found me on the floor, shaking. She laughed bitterly. He said, what if you didn't have to tell them the truth? Just say you're expecting again. Just get through the speech. So I did. And then you kept going, I whispered. The applause, the donations, it was like oxygen. Her voice cracked. We got a grant for a mobile unit. I started imagining what we could build with more. I convinced myself it was okay, that I was still honoring her somehow. My gaze hardened. You promised to name the baby after donors' children. You targeted families who had lost babies. You told stories that weren't yours. Chloe flinched. They were mine, Lena. I lived that pain. But you used theirs. She stood abruptly and walked to a desk in the corner, pulling out a folder. She handed it to me. Here, every dollar, every check, every name, you can see where it went. I scanned the documents. Thousands upon thousands of dollars from foundations, parents, grieving grandparents. Some to New Blossoms, the maternal health nonprofit she ran. Some to a personal PayPal account I hadn't known existed. Why didn't you stop? She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Because people kept thanking me, telling me I was brave, that I gave them hope. I stared at her. Chloe, hope built on lies isn't hope. It's theft. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I know. Silence stretched between us. Then she looked at me, fragile and wrecked. Please, just help me fix this before it all comes crashing down. I closed the folder. It was already too late. I didn't sleep that night. The weight of the folder, the journal, Chloe's confession, all of it sat heavy on my chest like an anchor. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face at the cabin, desperate, pleading, and still somehow calculating. By morning, I'd made a decision. I searched my contacts until I found the name. Marianne Ellery, retired nurse, grieving grandmother, philanthropist. We'd met briefly at a conference Chloe invited me to last fall. She'd been quiet, kind, the sort of woman who wore her heartbreak like a pressed flower. Fragile but preserved. My hands trembled as I dialed. She answered on the third ring. Mrs. Ellery, this is Lena Morgan. I don't mean to intrude, but I have a difficult question to ask you. About a donation you made to New Blossoms. There was a pause. I see, she said, her voice brittle. Did Chloe ever mention naming her baby after your granddaughter? Another pause. She said it was the least she could do. She told me the baby's name would be Clara Rose, that she would be born in late July, that she would carry Clara's spirit forward. I closed my eyes. I'm so sorry, I whispered. But Chloe isn't pregnant. Silence. When she spoke again, her voice was cold steel. Then she's not just broken. She's dangerous. The call ended quietly. I sat there, staring at the wall, knowing something irreversible had just been set in motion. The story broke 3 days later. It started as a post on a local parenting forum. Fraud alert, nonprofit director may be faking pregnancy for donations. Attached was a blurry photo from the baby shower, a screenshot of Chloe's donor request form, and a pointed question. Has anyone actually seen medical proof she's pregnant? Within hours, it had gone viral. Comments flooded in. Whispers turned into roars. People were furious, heartbroken. Some defended her, calling it grief-fueled delusion. Others demanded police involvement. Chloe vanished. Her social media accounts were deleted. The nonprofit's website went dark. The office she rented downtown was locked and empty. Alistair made a vague public statement, distancing himself. My wife has been under immense emotional strain. I had no idea. Ryan came home late that evening, still in his scrubs. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, numb, watching the news coverage cycle through Chloe's smiling photos like a eulogy. They've opened an investigation, he said, tossing his keys on the counter. Multiple donors have filed fraud reports. And Chloe? Gone. Bank accounts drained, car still missing. Her family doesn't know where she is. I pressed my palm to my forehead, trying to breathe. She could come here, I whispered. Ryan looked at me sharply. She shouldn't. She always comes to me when she breaks, I said, voice cracking. Even in college, every time she hit bottom, she showed up at my door. She's not just broken, Lena. She's dangerous now. Not in the violent sense, but she pulls people under with her. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because he was right. That night, the rain started just after midnight. It fell steady and slow, tapping against the windows like fingers trying to get in. I had just begun to drift into restless sleep when I heard it. A knock. Barely audible. A second knock, softer. I crept to the peephole. Chloe stood on my porch, soaked to the skin. No makeup, no bump, no pretense. Just Chloe. Her eyes were wide, empty, and lost. I opened the door. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just collapsed into my arms like a puppet whose strings had finally snapped. Her body was thin, frail even. Her collarbone sharp beneath the soaked fabric. I could feel her ribs through the cotton. I wrapped her in a blanket and helped her to the couch. She stared into space, silent, trembling. I made tea. She didn't drink it. I asked questions. She didn't answer. So I sat with her in the quiet, listening to the rain, watching the storm gather both outside and within. When Ryan came home at dawn, she hadn't moved. He looked from her to me, then said the words I knew were coming. The warrant's been issued. Fraud. Multiple counts. She can't stay here. I nodded, unable to argue. She needs help, I said quietly. He didn't disagree. But he added, and consequences. Chloe stirred then, looked at me, her eyes finally focusing. Her voice was barely audible. Tell me what to do, she whispered. I'll do it. I stared at her. My oldest friend, a woman I no longer recognized, and realized this wasn't the end of the story. It was the reckoning. 3 weeks later, I sat on a wooden bench in a courtroom that smelled like old paper and disappointment. Chloe wore a gray sweater and slacks. No bump, no flower crown, no glow. Just pale skin, dark circles, and the stiff posture of someone who had stopped pretending or was too exhausted to continue. Her lawyer negotiated a plea. The charges? Fraud, misappropriation of charitable funds, intentional emotional manipulation. Each one felt like a hammer striking the bones of our history. She pled guilty. In exchange, no prison time, but 3 years probation, full restitution of donations, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory psychiatric treatment. The judge asked if any witnesses wished to speak. I stood. Ryan looked at me, warning in his eyes, but he didn't stop me. My heels echoed as I stepped to the front of the room. I looked at the judge, then at Chloe, then down at my shaking hands. My name is Lena Morgan, I began. I've known the defendant for over 20 years. She was my best friend. I paused, letting that ache settle in my throat before continuing. She lost a pregnancy a year ago. She kept that pain buried so deep she couldn't tell anyone, not even me. What she did after, it was wrong, deeply wrong, but it didn't come from malice. It came from grief that metastasized. I swallowed. She crossed a line between sorrow and performance, between coping and manipulation. She hurt people, she betrayed trust. She must answer for that. I looked at Chloe then. Her eyes glistened. She didn't blink. But I also believe she's not beyond repair, I said softly. I believe therapy can help her. I believe consequences should teach, not only punish. The judge nodded slowly. I stepped down. No applause. No acknowledgement. Just silence. That night, I placed the journal, the folder, and the scarf I never actually lost into a box. I labeled it Colette, confidential, and slid it into the back of our closet beside my old college yearbooks and my late father's watch. A week later, Chloe's nonprofit, New Blossoms, was officially dissolved. Its remaining assets were transferred to verified maternal health charities. Several donors declined repayment, instead asking that the funds be redirected to real families in need. Chloe was moved to a psychiatric treatment center in the outskirts of town. News outlets quickly lost interest after the sentencing. She became just another fading scandal in a city that preferred new controversies. I visited her once. She didn't speak, just stared at me with those pale, bottomless eyes. I stayed for 10 minutes, left a book on the table, When Things Fall Apart, then walked out into the wind. I didn't go back. I told myself it was for her, but deep down I knew it was for me. 6 months passed. The air turned crisp, leaves fell in spirals outside my window. Life somehow moved forward, measured not in milestones, but in quiet moments that didn't hurt anymore. I hadn't heard from Chloe since the sentencing, until that morning. A plain envelope arrived, hand-addressed in careful script I'd recognize anywhere. No return address, just my name. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single page. Lena. They tell me writing this is part of my recovery. Not apology, but acknowledgement. Not performance, but honesty. I'm still learning the difference. What I did was unforgivable. But I'm trying to forgive myself anyway, so I don't die in here still pretending. The grief was real. The loss was real. But what I built on top of it, that empire of sympathy, I see it now for what it was. A house made of mirrors. You were the only one who ever looked at me and saw more than the reflection. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect anything, really. But I needed you to know you saved me, not by protecting me, but by finally letting me fall. Some days I think I'm still falling, but at least now I know where the ground is. Thank you for holding the line when I let go of it. Say, Chloe. I folded the letter and placed it inside a memory box beneath my bed. Next to it were photos of us at 12 in the cabin, homemade friendship bracelets, and the receipt for the scarf I never actually lost, but claimed I had to get back into her house. That lie. The first crack. The beginning of truth. Later that afternoon, I drove out to where her baby shower had been held, the converted barn with whitewashed beams and glass chandeliers. It stood empty now, quiet. I sat on the front steps as golden leaves gathered around my shoes, and I thought about all the invisible things we miss in the people we love. How easy it is to believe beautiful lies when they're told by someone who once knew your secrets. How hard it is to accept that sometimes love isn't enough to save someone. Sometimes love is the reason you walk away. Sometimes it's the reason you stay just long enough to hand them the truth, then leave them to carry it alone. As I rose to go, a breeze lifted through the trees, and I finally let go of the weight I'd been holding. Not of Chloe, but of who I used to be when I still believed she'd never lie to me.